What if everything you thought you knew about Jesus was only part of the story? What if one of the world's most influential scriptures described Jesus with extraordinary honor, called him the Messiah, told the story of his miraculous birth, spoke about his miracles, and revealed a completely different perspective on his mission? That scripture is the Qur'an. For more than 14 centuries, the Qur'an has presented Jesus not as a forgotten figure of the past, but as one of the most important messengers sent by God. So who was Jesus according to the Qur'an? Why was his birth so miraculous? What was his message? And why does Islam give him such a unique place? Today, on Divine Sagas, we are going to explore 10 powerful things the Qur'an says about Jesus, and by the end, you may look at his story in a completely different way. The first thing the Qur'an tells us about Jesus is that his birth was a miracle unlike any ordinary human birth. Jesus was born to Mary, a woman who had never been touched by a man. The Qur'an describes the moment when angels brought Mary the astonishing news that she would have a son. She asked how this could happen when no man had ever touched her. The answer was that God creates whatever he wills. When he decrees something, he simply says, "Be," and it is. In the Quranic account, the miraculous birth of Jesus is not presented as evidence that he was God. Instead, it is presented as a magnificent sign of the power of the Creator. His birth was extraordinary, but the one who created him was even greater. The Quran then draws our attention to Mary, the mother of Jesus. Her story is so important that an entire chapter of the Quran is named after her, Surah Maryam, the chapter of Mary. Mary is described as a woman chosen and purified by God. Her life was marked by devotion, purity, patience, and extraordinary faith. Imagine the weight of her situation. She was chosen to give birth to a child without a human father, and she knew that people might question and accuse her. Yet she endured what came upon her with faith in God. When she eventually returned to her people carrying the newborn Jesus, they were shocked. But what happened next was even more remarkable. The Quran tells us that Jesus spoke while still an infant. When people questioned Mary, she pointed toward the child. They could hardly believe that a baby could speak. Then Jesus spoke, declaring that he was a servant of God, that God had given him revelation, and that he had made him a prophet. From the very beginning of his life, the Quranic story presents Jesus as someone connected directly to God through prophethood and revelation. The third thing the Quran tells us is that Jesus was the Messiah. In the Quran, he is called Al-Masih, meaning the Messiah, and Isa ibn Maryam, Jesus, son of Mary. He was not an ordinary man. He was a messenger chosen by God and sent to guide the children of Israel. The Quran speaks about him with immense respect and describes him as a word from God and a spirit from him, while still making clear that he was a servant and messenger of his Creator. Jesus therefore occupies a unique position in Islam. Muslims do not reject Jesus, and they do not consider belief in him optional. To reject Jesus as a messenger of God would contradict Islamic faith itself. Muslims believe in his miraculous birth, his prophethood, his miracles, his message, and his special role in the events of the end times. But if Jesus was truly sent by God, what message did he bring? What miracles did he perform? And what did he teach the people who followed him? The answers to those questions take us even deeper into the Quranic story of Jesus. And that is where the story becomes truly extraordinary. The fourth thing the Quran tells us about Jesus is that God gave him extraordinary miracles. These miracles were not presented as proof that Jesus himself possessed divine power independently. Rather, the Quran repeatedly emphasizes that these signs happened by the permission of God. Jesus was given the ability to heal people who had been blind from birth and those suffering from serious illness. He was also given the ability by God's permission to bring the dead back to life. These were signs meant to show the people that Jesus had truly been sent by God. But the miracles were never meant to turn Jesus into the object of worship. They pointed beyond Jesus to the one who had sent him. The Quran also describes another remarkable miracle. Jesus could tell people what they had eaten and what they had stored in their homes. These were extraordinary signs, but Jesus himself made clear that he had not come with a message of self-glorification. He came with revelation and guidance. His miracles were signs of God's power, while his mission was to guide people back to their Creator. The fifth thing the Quran tells us about Jesus is that his message was centered on the worship of the one God. Jesus was sent to the children of Israel as a messenger confirming the revelation that had come before him. He called people to worship Allah, the one true God. This is one of the most important parts of the Quranic portrayal of Jesus. His mission was not to establish the worship of himself. His mission was to direct people toward God. The Quran records Jesus telling his people that Allah was his Lord and their Lord, and therefore they should worship him. This message is at the heart of Islam. There is only one Creator, only one ultimate object of worship, and every prophet came to call humanity back to him. From Adam to Noah, Abraham to Moses, and from Jesus to Muhammad, the Quran presents the prophets as part of one continuous chain of guidance. The sixth thing the Quran tells us is that Jesus had devoted followers. When Jesus sensed disbelief among some of the children of Israel, he asked who would stand with him for the cause of God. His disciples responded that they were supporters of God and that they believed in him. The Quran describes these followers as people who supported the messenger and stood firmly with his mission. This is important because the Quran does not portray Jesus as someone whose story ended with rejection and failure. Instead, his life is presented as part of a divine plan. He was chosen, supported with miracles, given revelation, and surrounded by believers who recognized the truth of his message. But there is another part of the story that has shaped Christian and Islamic theology for centuries: the question of what happened to Jesus at the end of his earthly mission. According to the Quran, the truth is very different from what many people assume. The Quran states that Jesus was not killed or crucified in the way his enemies claim. Instead, God raised him to himself. The Quran describes the claim that Jesus was killed as something that only appeared to happen to them, while emphasizing that they did not actually kill him. This creates one of the most significant differences between traditional Christian belief and Islamic belief. Islam honors Jesus deeply, but it does not believe that his enemies succeeded in killing him. The Quran presents God as protecting his messenger and raising Jesus to himself. And if Jesus was raised by God, does that mean his story is over? Not according to Islamic belief, because the Quran and the teachings of Islam point toward another extraordinary event still to come: the return of Jesus before the end of the world. And that final chapter of the story may be one of the most fascinating things Islam teaches about Jesus. The seventh thing the Quran tells us about Jesus is connected to one of the most debated events in religious history: the crucifixion. According to the Quran, the people who opposed Jesus claimed that they had killed him, but the Quran firmly rejects that claim. It states that they did not kill him, nor did they crucify him, but that it was made to appear so to them. Instead, Allah raised Jesus to himself. In Islam, this is not simply a detail about the past. It is part of a larger belief that God protected his messenger and that Jesus still has an important role in the future. This belief also reveals something fundamental about how Islam understands the prophets. Jesus was sent by God, and like the prophets before him, his mission was ultimately in the hands of his Creator. His enemies could plan against him, but they could not defeat the will of God. The Quran presents this as a reminder that divine power is greater than human plans. The eighth thing the Quran says about Jesus is perhaps the most important. Jesus is a servant and messenger of God. The Quran gives Jesus many honored titles, but it never asks humanity to worship him. Instead, it repeatedly places him among the servants and messengers of God. Jesus himself is presented as someone who worshipped God and called others to worship him. This distinction is at the heart of the Islamic understanding of Jesus. Muslims love Jesus, respect Jesus, and believe that Jesus was the Messiah. But they do not worship Jesus. In Islam, worship belongs exclusively to the Creator. A prophet can be honored without becoming an object of worship. The Quran also challenges the idea that Jesus' miraculous nature makes him divine. His birth was miraculous, but Adam's creation was even more extraordinary in a different sense. Adam had neither a father nor a mother, while Jesus had a mother but no human father. The Quran uses this comparison to remind humanity that miracles do not change the identity of the Creator or His creation. God creates however He wills. The ninth thing Muslims believe about Jesus is that He will return before the end of time. While the Quran contains passages that Muslims understand as connected to Jesus' future role, the details of His return are explained more extensively in the authentic teachings of Prophet Muhammad. According to Islamic tradition, Jesus was raised by God and will return to earth before the day of judgment. His return is not understood as the arrival of a new religion. Rather, Jesus will return as a servant and messenger of God, affirming the truth of monotheism and standing against falsehood. His return is therefore connected to one of the central themes of Islam, the ultimate triumph of truth over deception. And this leads to the 10th and perhaps most meaningful point. What do Muslims actually believe about Jesus? Muslims believe that Jesus was one of the greatest messengers of God. They believe in His miraculous birth, His mother Mary, His miracles, His revelation, His disciples, and His special role in the events leading to the end of the world. Believing in Jesus is not something Muslims inherited from Christianity. It is a direct part of Islamic faith. But Islam also teaches that Jesus was not the creator. He was not the object of worship. He was a human messenger chosen by God, just as other prophets were chosen before him. The Quran presents Jesus as a sign of God's mercy and power, while calling humanity to something even greater than admiration for a prophet, submission to the one who sent him. And perhaps that is the most powerful part of the entire story. Jesus did not come to make humanity worship a man. According to the Quran, He came to guide humanity toward God. So, after everything we have discovered, one question remains: why does the Quran speak about Jesus with so much honor? Because in Islam, Jesus is not a forgotten prophet from the distant past. He is the Messiah, the son of Mary, a messenger of God, a man supported by extraordinary miracles, and one of the greatest signs of the Creator's power. The Quran does not ask Muslims to hate Jesus or reject His story. Quite the opposite. Muslims are required to believe in Him. They believe in the miraculous birth of Jesus. They honor His mother Mary. They believe in His miracles. They believe that He received revelation from God. And they believe that He will return before the end of time. But the Quran also draws a clear line between the Creator and His creation. Jesus was created by God, chosen by God, supported by God, and sent by God. He was never presented as the Creator Himself. And perhaps this is the central message behind the entire Quranic story of Jesus. Miracles do not make a prophet God. A miraculous birth does not change the identity of the Creator. And honoring a messenger does not mean worshipping the messenger. According to the Quran, Jesus called people back to the worship of the one God, the same God who created the heavens and the earth, the God of Abraham, Moses, Jesus, and all the prophets. This is the foundation of Islam: one Creator, one God, and humanity called to worship Him alone. The story of Jesus, therefore, is not simply a story about the past. It is a reminder about faith, truth, mercy, and the purpose of human existence. It challenges us to look beyond the messenger and recognize the one who sent him. Jesus was not merely a historical figure in the Quran. He was one of Allah's greatest messengers, the Messiah, and a sign of His power and mercy. And according to Islam, the message He brought was ultimately the same call given by the prophets before Him: worship the one true God. So perhaps the question is not simply, who was Jesus? Perhaps the deeper question is, who did Jesus call humanity to worship? The Quran gives its answer clearly: the one God. If this story gave you a new perspective on Jesus, share it with someone who may never have heard the Quranic account before. And for more stories exploring faith, history, scripture, and the mysteries that have shaped humanity, stay connected with Divine Sagas. Because sometimes the story you thought you knew has another chapter.